It is 9:01. I don't see anybody here. Oh. Hi, Mrs. Kaufman. I see you there. Oh, hi, Carrie. Now I'm seeing people. I'm so excited too. Welcome back to Parent Story Hour. We haven't done this in a while. I have Megan with me here tonight. I'm dressed as a unicorn tonight, and she is a ladybug, and she is joining us tonight. Oh, yay. I think the messages were just delayed. I see that you're here. So I stopped doing Parent Story Hour when we started remote learning. And those of you who have done remote learning, lived through, I should say, not done, know that it's probably impossible to do Parent Story Hour and remote learning. The first day of remote learning, I actually sprained my ankle. And when Tim came home from work, he's like, how did it go? And I was like, I physically injured myself. And I don't know if it was from running between the classrooms or playing tag at recess, but I injured myself. So at least I could come back and do this special event for Halloween. And I found some particularly horrible ghost stories that I'm going to read to you tonight. And in the last live event, we only had one story, but tonight I have 4 because I haven't been here for a while, so I have to make up for some lost time. 2 are very short, like so short you won't even know that they happened. And then 2 are regular stories. So we're going to go ahead and read those in a minute. I'll show you which books they come from. Maybe you had this book, 13 Ghostly Tales. It is an Apple paperback, probably from a Scholastic book fair. And then the other stories are from this random book called Ghost Stories from like 1983. And I don't know where it even came from, but they're really horrible and you'll really like them. So feel free to comment as we go. I can see all of your comments on the screen here, and give me your input on these stories that we're going to read. So the first one I'm going to read to you, let me see if I can take my unicorn hood off so I can see what I'm doing, is called The Ghost with One Sock. And the title is just as bad as the story. Once there was a man who died with only one sock on. After the funeral, he kept coming back to his old house. Every night, he came back at the stroke of midnight. His wife was so scared, she moved from that place, but he found her. So his wife moved again. She kept on moving, and he kept coming back, which is already 2 more times than I would have moved. One day, she couldn't stand moving anymore. So that night, she asked him, "What is it you want? Why do you keep haunting me?" "Please," he said, "could I have my other sock?" So she gave him his other sock, and to this day, he has never been seen again. That was the entire story. I think like the moral of this one is maybe ask a ghost before you move 17 times what they want, because it could just be a sock and you don't have to run a U-Haul all those times. I'm not sure what we're supposed to learn from that one, but yeah, I found that one particularly awful, so I thought you'd enjoy that. Okay, the next one that I'm going to read is called The Coming of Billy Dean. It is actually called that, and you're really going to like this one. I think you're really going to enjoy it. "He will come," Annie said, half to herself. "Who will come, Annie?" her mother asked. She stopped her washing at the big wooden tub. She looked at her daughter and sighed. Unfortunately, she knew only too well who Annie was talking about. Annie was sitting and brushing her hair in the sun. It shone and sparkled as she tossed her head about. Her hair is like silk, ready for spinning, her mother thought. Personally, I think that's a weird thought to have if your child's brushing their hair. What a beautiful girl she is. But Annie is a willful one, too. She is 19 already, and she still turns away suitors as if they were beggars at the kitchen door. Now Annie smiled at her mother. Why, Billy Dean will come, of course. Mrs. Clare sighed again. Annie had been talking about Billy Dean since she was a little girl. She had first mentioned him on her 12th birthday. The birthday girl must make a wish, her father said. Annie closed her eyes and made her wish out loud. I wish that Billy Dean would come, and I wish Billy Dean would come and carry me away. What a strange wish, everyone thought. There was no Billy Dean in the village, so everyone thought this was a girlish game. What a strange wish. Like, wouldn't you set up a mental health evaluation at that point? She is 12. You know, she's not 4 or 5 where she has these imaginary friends. Anyway, that first red flag right there. Her father laughed. There's time enough for the coming of Billy Dean or any other lad. Weird way to word it, but okay. A beautiful girl like Annie Clare will be carried off soon enough. But Annie Clare was not carried off, though it was not for lack of suitors. More than 20 young men had asked John Clare for Annie's hand. She would have none of them. I'll wait for Billy Dean, Annie would say, and that was that. Now Mrs. Clare wiped the soap suds from her hands and sat down by her daughter. Annie, it's time you stopped talking about Billy Dean. It was good fun when you were 12, but you're a grown woman now. Was it good fun when she was 12? Oh, and yes, yeah, my mom said could be a Hallmark movie. Yeah, it could be. This could be a Hallmark movie. Wait, there's a picture, too. You're going to love the picture. You should be thinking of a husband and a family. You sound as if you want to get rid of me, Annie laughed, and then her mother was serious. Is that true, Mother? Have you and Father had enough of me? I mean, I have already. We're only on the 3rd page. Bite your tongue, Annie Clare. No mother and father ever loved their daughter more, but your father and I would like to see grandchildren in our old age. It's a natural thing to wish for. Yes, Mother, Annie said, and for a moment she looked sad. There, now I've made you sad, Mrs. Clare said. I'll say no more about it. Annie smiled again and went on brushing her hair. Don't worry, Mother, she teased. Billy Dean will come soon now. I'll say no more about it either. Annie was good for her word. For more than a year, she never mentioned Billy Dean. The following winter was so hard and cruel and cold, and the dampness remained well into April. Many people tired of waiting for spring and fell ill. Among them was Annie Clare. Right, exactly. We have some comments. Was Frankenstein one of them asking for her hand? Wait till you see the picture. He should have been. It's a better option. And she's 19, right. Waiting for grandchildren, you know, she just got out of high school. It seems to just be a head cold, so her mother did all the usual things. Now, you can throw this in the comments. What are some of the usual things that you would do for a head cold? Personally, I would say chicken noodle soup, some Tylenol, take her temperature, a warm shower. I don't know. So here are the usual things that her mother did for this head cold. She tied a bag of garlic around Annie's neck. She applied mustard plasters to her chest. She made Annie gargle with salt and water, and she held Annie's head over a steaming kettle. Nothing seemed to help, and the cold got worse. Okay, if hanging a bag of garlic around your neck helped, then how did all of Italy get this virus? I'm just saying. So those are not the usual. Soup, see, these are great suggestions. Hot toddies, yes. Suck it up, kid. It's a cold. Right, I agree. But nothing seemed to help. The cold got worse, and Annie had a raging fever and became very ill. A night came that Mr. and Mrs. Clare were sure that it was their daughter's last. They sat by Annie's bed and wept quietly. Annie lay sleeping. It was then that they heard a faint shout, "Hello!" coming a long way across the meadow. Annie was awake at once. "It's Billy Dean," she cried. "He's come at last." The shout was heard again, closer this time. Mr. and Mrs. Clare looked at one another and shivered with fear. Annie sprang from her bed as though she had never been sick. The burning fever was gone. Vicks down her throat. Right, yeah, I would have tried that before, giving her up to a ghost. The only red in her cheeks was the pale blush of joy. "I must get ready," she said. Annie put on her best white dress and brushed her hair until it sparkled. She tied her hair back with a single green ribbon. "To remember my home," she said. I mean, seriously, at this point, wouldn't you call someone? This is an emergency. She's obviously delirious. Annie took a gold locket from the drawer and opened it. Inside were pictures of her mother and father. To remember you, she smiled. There was a thunder of hoofbeats on the road, and another shout. Hello, echoed in the night. With a shaking hand, John Clare took his pistol from the place on the mantel. Father, said Annie, it's only Billy Dean. I must go with him. I've waited so long. The door was thrust open, and a young man stepped into the room. Now, before I read you to the description, I would like to show you the picture, because I'm not sure. He's like one of the three musketeers has come to take her away, their child with a fever. And no one's questioning this at this point. He was tall and very handsome. That's debatable. Dressed like a highwayman of 100 years before. John Clare raised his gun and fired. This only made the young man laugh. Father-in-law, he said. A little presumptuous, isn't it? I've come to claim my bride. Is that any way to treat your son? And he swept Annie in his arms. In a moment, they were out the door together, and there was another thundering of hoofs, and Annie and the stranger were gone. The night and a deadly silence closed around the coming of Billy Dean. And that's the whole story. I was thinking Zorro. Yeah, Zorro. Yeah, it did look like Zorro. I mean, really? This is who she waited for since she was 12 to get a fever and die and be taken off by Zorro's ghost. And that's the whole story. I mean, really. Didn't disappoint me, but for Parent Story Hour, but for a normal story, yes, that's quite disappointing. Okay, I have another one from 13 Ghostly Tales, sorry, called The Thing at the Foot of the Bed. This is a quick one. Once there was a man. They dared him to sleep all night in a haunted house. All right, he said, he wasn't scared of anything. He'd sleep there. No such thing as ghosts anyway. Sounds like a bad thing to say, right? So he went into the house and looked around, and everything looked all right. He went upstairs. Everything was all right there, too. He lay in bed for a while and listened, and he didn't hear anything, so he went to sleep. It was a warm night, so he had no covers but a sheet. The man slept a while, and suddenly he woke up and listened. He didn't hear anything. The moon was shining bright through the open window. So very carefully, very quietly, he looked around. He saw down at the foot of the bed 2 shiny eyes staring right at him. They didn't even blink. Was that a head? A face? The man thought he could make out the top of the crooked head. He was scared. He didn't dare move. But softly, he slid his hand under the pillow and pulled out the revolver he'd brought with him. So they had him stay in a haunted house and no one checked his bags. He brought a gun with him to the haunted house to shoot a ghost. Haven't we learned you can't shoot a ghost? From the last story, the father-in-law tried to shoot Billy Dean. Did that work? No, but this guy, he brought a gun with him. He aimed at the thing right between its eyes, and he was so scared that his hand trembled and wiggled and shook, and bam! The poor, scared fool had shot off his own big toe. Now that is the end of the story, but in parentheses, they say, his feet were sticking out below the sheet, and the moonlight shining on the nails of his big toes looked like 2 ghostly eyes. So they have to explain how he shot his toe off. The whole ending was that he shot his own foot. And didn't he know? Like, he didn't move at all? Right, because you bring a gun, right? I know, that one kind of left me. They give you a little picture. Here's a picture. I mean, I don't know that I would shoot at that necessarily, but he did. And where did that land him? The ER, probably. That's the whole story. I know. It's shocking, isn't it? I know. That's what I said when I read it. The kids laughed. They couldn't believe that it was an actual ghost story. And I saved the best for last. This one is called Terry O'Connell's Cat. I just can't even describe what happens in this story. You know, if I had to summarize the story, I just couldn't. So I'm going to read it to you, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Terry O'Connell's cat was large and black. It's good luck, Terry insisted. A black cat crossing your path is bad luck, he would tell his wife, but the owner of a black cat has good luck as long as he owns it. So we're starting off with a little superstition. You know this isn't going to go anywhere. Great. Terry had the cat since he was a boy. How did he get it? He found it on a fishing trip one afternoon. He was walking along the river and the cat jumped out of the bushes. It was scrawny and wet. It looked starved, as if someone had tried to drown it. Okay, red flag number 1. When you go fishing, what should you bring back? Some fish? Maybe a boot that your fishing line hooked in the water? Not a cat, especially a cat that looked like someone had tried to drown it. Red flag number 2, if someone has tried to drown this cat, there was probably a reason. I'm just saying. Learn a lot of lessons from this story. The cat rubbed against Terry's leg and purred. Terry dried it off, fed it a small fish he had caught, and found himself the owner of a large black cat. He named the cat Philip. Red flag number 3. Why, this creature is like a member of the family, Terry would say. There's no telling what our luck would be without Philip. Whether or not black cats bring owners good luck is hard to say, but Terry and Maggie O'Connell seemed to have their share of it. Their crops were good, the cow produced milk in great quantities, and there was always a living for them with a little bit of money left over. But Maggie O'Connell did not share her husband's feelings about the cat. It's a dirty beast, she complained. It sleeps in my linens, it scratches my furniture, and worst of all, and I'm sorry, I'm with Maggie on this one, it leaves fish scraps under the stove that smell terrible. Secretly, Maggie wished the cat would die. Okay, a bit extreme, but fish scraps are kind of gross. It was surely time enough, she thought. The cat was more than 18 years old, which was how long it had been since Terry had found him by the river. Philip, however, showed no interest in dying. Okay, fair enough. He prowled along the countryside at night. He begged for a bowl of cream in the morning. Terry would give him some of his breakfast. Then Philip would curl up in Maggie's linens to sleep for the day. At 3 p.m, the cat would rouse himself. He would sharpen his claws on the chair or table leg, and then he'd beg for his fish. He would greedily eat all but a few scraps, which he would leave where? Under the stove, right. This went on until Maggie felt she could stand it no longer, which is probably longer than I could have stood it. Then a day came when the O'Connells rose earlier than usual. Terry had business in town. Maggie, having the house to herself, thought she would do some baking. She had the dough ready. It was rising on the table near the stove. So picture this. So here she is. She's got the house to herself. She's going to bake her bread. Maybe she's going to watch some TV and hang out. And what happens? Philip came in looking for his breakfast. Maggie didn't pay attention to him being busy with her work, so the cat climbed on the table and walked through Maggie's dough. Maggie screamed, "My baking! You evil, dirty beast, you ruined my baking!" Okay, I agree. It's gross, right? Your cat walks through your bread. You don't like the cat to begin with. But what would you do? Maybe put the cat outside. Maybe, put a little gate up so the cat couldn't get in there. In a wild rage, she seized the cat and headed for the river. "Now you'll go back to where you came from," she said, and threw Philip into the river and watched him disappear. So I'm not a big fan of cats walking through what I'm baking, but I don't think I would drown it. I think that's kind of extreme. I mean, not a huge fan of cats in general, but I still wouldn't drown one. Terry couldn't believe that Maggie would do such a terrible thing. I can't believe it either. He ranted and raved and fell silent and mourned for his cat. He wouldn't eat. He began to neglect his work, and the cat left, and their luck left with them. To make matters worse, Philip's ghost returned to haunt them. So that's just a sentence they throw in there. She drowned the cat and the ghost is back. How do they know? Each night, it would wait until Terry and Maggie were in bed. They would scarcely be asleep when a howling and scratching on the roof would wake them. At first, they dashed outside thinking Philip had returned. Terry climbed a ladder. Terry could see it clearly in the moonlight. It was Philip, all right. But when he reached for the cat, it vanished. I mean, that in itself, I would ask for professional help at that point, really. After a while, they gave up trying to catch the cat. They knew it must be a spirit. Clearly, right? Night after night, they'd just lay in bed listening to the scratching and howling. Maggie knew something must be done, and she was sure that she was the one to do it. It was her evil deed. Well, yeah, she kind of did it, and she was the only one who could set things right again. So she went to the river and sat on the bank, wondering what she might do. She could think of nothing. Filled with despair, she began to cry. "Oh, Philip," she sobbed, "it was cruel and foolish thing I did. Forgive me, Philip, please forgive me." Then she fell asleep on the bank. It was the first sleep she had in weeks, so she slept deeply. Okay, I gotta stop right there. This woman, first of all, she drowned a cat. Then she's crying to the dead cat at the river. And then she falls asleep at the river. And the police haven't been involved at this point. That is 3 very odd things to do in public. And nobody has called about this. This is just normal. Like women cry over the cats they drown in the river. Is this like a usual thing that happens in this town? I don't know. It was late in the afternoon when she returned home. Since she felt better, she made supper for Terry as she used to before their troubles. She prepared biscuits and fish cakes and coaxed Terry to eat. When they finished, there was a single fish cake left over. She didn't know why, but Maggie took the cake and placed it under the stove. Yes, Carrie, who falls asleep at a river? That exactly. Then she and Terry sat together in silence. It had become their custom. There was no use in going to bed because they wouldn't sleep. They would just wait for the scratching and wailing to begin, and they would wait until morning. It was always a long time coming, but this night there was no scratching and wailing. Both Terry and Maggie fell asleep soundly. It was the first time since Philip had been gone. It was that fish cake, wasn't it? And when they awoke, they were ready for a hearty breakfast. "I think I'll work the fields this morning," Terry said. She wondered how long it had been since she'd had anything to smile about. As she was cleaning up after the morning meal, Maggie noticed something. The fish cake she left under the stove was gone, except for 2 or 3 scraps, that is. Perhaps Philip's spirit was ready to forgive her. Either that or she has mice. I mean, nobody considers anything logical in these stories. She filled a saucer with cream and put it on the floor in the corner, and she ran to the river. Naturally. "Oh, Philip," she cried, "thank you for giving us a night of peace." When she returned home, she found a saucer of cream emptied and licked clean. Once again, the night passed without scratching and howling. Maggie was now sure she was coming to terms with Philip's ghost. One more trip to the river might do it. One more trip to the river, lady. This is like number 4. One more trip to the river. She left a piece of fish under the stove and hurried off. At the river, she spoke as before. "Philip, it's good of you to forgive me. I'll never hurt another creature as long as I live." Again, she felt better, and it was such a beautiful day that she decided to walk along the river before returning home. She had not gone far when a large black cat jumped out of the bushes. It purred and rubbed against her legs. I would have started running at that point, honestly. Is it another cat? Is this going to happen all over again? Is it Philip? We don't know. Maggie was beside herself with delight. "Philip, you're not dead after all. We must have imagined everything. Come, I'll take you home to your master." "Oh, Philip, you've forgiven me." But as she stopped to pick up the cat, it disappeared. This gave Maggie a terrible fright, and she hurried home to tell Terry what it had. That gave her a fright? Not the ghost cat in their house for the last 2 months? Just the cat disappearing from the river? But when she arrived, Terry was sitting in his favorite rocking chair. He was smiling happily and staring at Maggie's linen chest. There on her linens was Philip. Well, she thought, real or ghost, we're probably back where we started, and that's probably where we're best to be. Really? No one was ever certain if the cat was the old Philip, a new Philip, or Philip's ghost. Even the author of the story isn't sure. Nobody's sure. But whatever it was, it stayed with the O'Connells for the rest of their lives. That was 47 years to the day, which is a long time indeed for a cat. Terry and Maggie died together on a Tuesday. Philip was found dead by the mourners on Wednesday. He was buried quietly and was never seen or heard from again. And that is the end of the story of Terry O'Connell's cat. How do we know he was never seen or heard from again? I mean, there's just no record of him being seen or heard from again. I mean, do people want to tell that story if a cat that looks like it's a ghost who was drowned jumps out of a river? I mean, obviously not. So we don't know. That one really, it's a real cliffhanger with that one. So that was Terry O'Connell's cat, The Coming of Billy Dean, and a few stories from 13 Ghostly Tales. And this one was from Ghost Stories if you're interested in this book. But you have heard the two best ones from it already, although there are lots of very weird ones in this book from 1983. So that's all I have for you tonight. I hope that you enjoyed our Halloween special of Parent Story Hour. Hopefully I can be back for another holiday if remote learning doesn't kill me. And hopefully we can share some more seasonal stories together. So everybody stay safe and healthy and hang in there.